Chapter 9. Wolfpack. It was time to deal with their pursuer. Ino stepped onto the bridge and cleared her throat. Sota moved away from the captain's chair and said, "You have the con." Ino took her place at the center of the bridge and spoke to the chief of the watch. "What's the status of our repairs?" "Cloaking sails are operating at 30% of normal efficiency. We can obscure ourselves," said Junior Lieutenant Zhao Hui. "All 4 runways are in service and the Guardian point defense systems are back online. Our maximum sublight acceleration is 47 meters per second squared. Hull breaches on decks 1, 2, and 3 have been patched." Ino nodded, then turned to Acting Ensign Hoshi Yamada. "Start reorienting the ship so that our dorsal armor is facing the enemy. Keep our bridge and hangar bays out of his sight." Ensign Yamada started fiddling with the controls, and Ino felt the ship lurch under her. "We'll attack the Kailasha at 1200 hours, Ino said. "Beninato, I want you to sound general quarters at 1100 hours. Ino called the armory over the intercom. Elodie of Liechtenstein took the call. "Elodie, the ship's codex says you cross-trained as a Wizzo in the SU-77, Ino said. "That's right, I did," Elodie replied. "Well, the Silent Hunter Squadron is down a Wizzo. Put on a flight suit and report to the hangar bay." Elodie reached the starboard hangar just as the call to general quarters went out. The SU-77 starfighters of Silent Hunter Squadron were already being moved to the launch catapults when she arrived. Captain Sharp, a squadron leader, spotted Elodie coming and pointed to a nearby SU-77. The nose cone was painted in the blue and yellow colors of Ukraine, and the image of a barely clothed Slavic woman was stenciled onto the side of the fuselage. The name Zoya's Charm was handwritten underneath the picture of the pin-up girl. A bald man wearing aviator shades shook Elodie's hand and greeted her in a thick Ukrainian accent. "Lieutenant Pavlo Ivashenko, Ukrainian Armed Forces. I hear you are my replacement Wizzo. Do you need a refresher on the SU-77 systems?" "Did they ever fix the problem with the Biryusa missiles?" Elodie asked. She reached up to the wing of Pavlo's starfighter and tapped a large anti-ship missile attached to one of the pylons. Pavlo shook his head. "Of course not. The Russian military says to compensate through overwhelming volley fire. The plan is to fire about 50 of these things at the enemy. At least one should get through. They can't all be duds." Captain Sharp gave the order to mount up. Elodie clammed into the back seat of the SU-77, into the space reserved for the Weapons Systems Officer, or Wizzo. Elodie donned her space helmet and gave Pavlo the thumbs up as he took the front seat. "Hunter 4, this is Marathon. You are number 6 in line for takeoff. Stand by," said the voice of Air Boss Ty. "What happened to your Wizzo?" Elodie asked Pavlo. "Was he killed when we got ambushed?" "No, my Wizzo is a woman, and she had a mental health breakdown last night," Pavlo said. "Woke up screaming that a Destican invaded her dreams. She's in a terrible state, so Captain Sharp had her sent to the infirmary." SU-77s began to launch. Elodie reached forward and activated her weapons control terminal. "Weapons checks," Elodie said. "We've got 256 rounds in the 30mm autocannon. We're carrying 6 Biryusa anti-ship missiles on the hardpoints, plus 8 air-to-air missiles." "Just enough for a good party," Pavlo confirmed. "Brace for launch." The starfighter lurched as the electromagnetic catapult latched on. Elodie clenched her thighs and tried to whistle as her body was suddenly subjected to high G forces for a few seconds. Then the Marathon was left far behind, and the fighter was careening through space, buffeted by a strong solar wind. Pavlo took the controls and maneuvered to rejoin the formation while Elodie took stock of the situation. The cosmic storm was still raging. Elodie cursed when she saw just how badly the radiant energy was interfering with the sensors. "Silent Hunter Squadron, fall in on me," Captain Sharp's voice called over the radio. "Distance to target, half an AU. Lock in your cruise speed. We want to save the afterburners for the escape maneuver." Silent Hunter was not the only squadron on the move. Prima Nocta Squadron, a VWAX unit, was also up. Unlike the Silent Hunters, Prima Nocta consisted of non-combat spacecraft. Their ships were outfitted with a mind-bogglingly complex array of sensors and detectors. Nothing could move without Prima Nocta knowing about it. Looking down at her sensors, Elodie spotted and made contact with one member of Prima Nocta, a Beriev A-110 spacecraft. Silent Hunter 4, this is Prima Nocta 1 Actual. We are on station and have established void-borne warning and control systems for the operation. We will provide BRA IV data for targets. Over. BRA IV was short for bearing, range, altitude, inclination, and velocity. Elodie would need these details to calculate a firing solution. Silent Hunter Squadron roared through space, closing in on the Kailasha's position. To maintain the element of surprise, the starfighters flew in radio silence, trying to avoid talking to each other unless absolutely necessary. After about 20 minutes of flight time, Captain Sharp broke radio silence. Prima Nocta, Silent Hunter 1 Actual. Request bogey dope. Over. Elodie tensed up. Sharp had just asked the VWAX team to confirm the enemy's exact location. Elodie looked down at her sensors display. Silent Hunter 1 Actual, Prima Nocta, BRA, 014 plus 084, 250,000, 1.355 million kilometers above the sun. IV, 7.8 degrees at 24.8 kilometers per second. Target is blue shift. Elodie translated the military jargon into plain English as she punched the data into her computer. The Kailasha was 250,000 kilometers in front of the squadron. However, the squadron was drifting off course, 14 degrees to the left and 8 degrees down. The enemy was in a very high orbit above the local star and was presently flying toward Silent Hunter Squadron. Captain Sharp adjusted his course and gave orders for the rest of the fighters to follow him. 2 minutes to weapons range, Elodie called out from the back seat. Pavlo drummed his fingers on the control column and then flashed Elodie the thumbs up. Lock him up and get ready to fire on my command. Elodie target locked the Kailasha. All around, the other starfighters did the same. Looking into her sensor screen, Elodie spotted new activity. Oh, the enemy definitely knows we're here now, she said. They're popping anti-missile decoys. I count 8 so far. 8 against 50. It hardly seems fair, Pavlo said. Stand by. We're going to start the attack run in a minute. Marathon, this is Silent Hunter 1 Actual, said the voice of Captain Sharp over the radio. We have contact with the enemy. Request permission to engage. Silent Hunter, you are red and free, said the voice of Ino Esperanta. All Silent Hunters, fire your salvos, then turn and burn, Captain Sharp said. You heard the man. Smoke 'em, Pavlo ordered. Elodie's hands flew over the controls. Hunter 4, Fox 3, Elodie called out. Her fighter rumbled as the first anti-ship missile sailed away. As soon as it was clear, she fired another. Fox 3! Each Su-77 fired 2 missiles, then turned around to start their escape maneuvers. After just a few minutes, a total of 50 Biryuza anti-ship missiles were streaking through space toward Kailasha. All members of Silent Hunter Squadron turned around and activated their afterburners, rocketing back toward Marathon as fast as they could. Pavlo pushed the afterburners of his own ship to the limit. Both he and Elodie were pressed backward into their seats by G-forces. Did we hit 'em? Pavlo asked. Any joy? Prima Nocta, Silent Hunter 4-2, Elodie called out. Request picture. Silent Hunter 4-2, Prima Nocta. Situational awareness update to follow. An additional 5 enemy frigates have decloaked and are pursuing you. They have begun to shoot down your missiles. 10 destroyed so far. 40 remain in flight. Distance to enemy pursuers, 100,000 kilometers. Kailasha is in red shift. Pursuers are blue shift. "Push it! We've got to go!" Elodie shouted to Pavlo. "They're chasing us!" "Diverting power to the afterburners. Stand by for 5Gs, Pavlo replied. Suddenly, an alarm sounded on Elodie's console. "Vampire inbound! Launching countermeasures!" One of the enemy frigates had fired a missile at Elodie and Pavlo's fighter. "Decoys out!" Elodie reported. She scanned her sensor screen, trying to discern information about the incoming missile. "Infrared," she gasped. "Pavlo, it's a heat seeker! Fly into the sun and kill engines!" At the same time, Elodie mashed the flares button with her thumb. She could see the brilliant red lights reflecting off the surface of her helmet. Pavlo followed Elodie's advice. He banked the fighter hard until the local star was directly in front of him, then throttled down the engines. "Missile defeated!" Elodie cheered as it shot past. "Get us back to Marathon! Go! Go! Go!" "Oscar Mike, hold on!" Pavlo said. The scene was repeating itself everywhere. Starfighters and frigates raced through the void while Marathon reoriented herself to keep the hangar bays facing away from the enemy. "We're inside Marathon's defensive sphere," Elodie reported. "Keep an eye out for weapons fire." When the enemy frigates ventured too close, Marathon opened fire with antimatter missiles and Ripper autocannons. The frigates veered off, retreating to the safety of open space. Moments later, Elodie spotted a Beriev A-10 coming into land at runway 2. "Silent Hunter, this is Prima Nocta. Better luck next time." 48 out of 50 missiles were shot down. 2 got through and hit Kailasha, but they were both duds. Failed to detonate. Our best guess? They probably punctured the hull and decompressed a couple of decks. Kailasha is still active and closing on Marathon. Elodie sighed and took her hands off the controls, allowing Pavlo to control the landing. "You were pretty good, Liechtenstein," Pavlo said. "I owe you a drink. Want to meet up at the All Ranks Club later?" Elodie was glad she was still wearing her space helmet. She was blushing intensely, trying to savor the thrill of being asked out by a starfighter pilot. When Elodie looked up to reply, however, something strange happened. For half a fraction of a second, Elodie could have sworn there was a Destican in the cockpit with her and Pavlo. But that would have been impossible. There was only room for 2 people in the cramped little space. Yet Elodie's conscious mind had somehow perceived a necroid life form sitting next to her as comfortably as though it had always been there. She also got the sense that the alien had been looking at her. "You all right back there, Liechtenstein?" Pavlo asked. "Normally when I ask someone on a date, they say something." Elodie quickly recovered. "Sorry, I'm not used to someone asking me on a date that doesn't involve the virtual combat simulator," she said. "Caught me off guard." Ino ordered the Marathon to accelerate to flank speed as soon as the last starfighters were aboard. "Break contact! Get us out of here!" Ino said. "Someone tell me what the enemy is doing." "It looks like those frigates are falling back to render aid to the Kailasha," said Sota. "Your friend in the CIC must have been right. That Destican prince might really be on board that ship." "Good," Ino said. "They'll care more about saving him than coming after us. The last thing we need is to fight a whole Wolfpack of ships. Set a course for a hyperlane leading out of here. Once we get more than 10 AUs between ourselves and the enemy, stand down from battle stations." Marathon turned and burned, escaping from the Kailasha and her Wolfpack. Once Ino was satisfied the enemy was left behind, she gave Sota the con and walked across the bridge to her ready room. Ino needed to take a break and catch her breath. Nobody had died in today's fighting. At least, no one on the Coalition side had died. Ino knew that the dud missiles would have caused some casualties when they struck Kailasha, just not as many as she would have preferred. Breathing deeply, Ino made a mental note to ask the engineering team to investigate the dud missiles. Then she opened the door and stepped inside her ready room. there was someone sitting at her desk. A Destican man stood up and gazed at Ino from behind her work desk. Tall and muscular, his blue skin seemed to amplify the dangerous glow of his orange eyes. A pair of brown horns sprouted from the man's forehead and curved upward, making his scowl seem demonic. A torrent of fear washed over Ino, rooting her to the spot. "At long last, we meet again," the Destican spoke in a menacing whisper. "Your warriors killed off 15 of my crew. I underestimated you. I will not repeat that mistake." The Destican walked toward Ino, passing through her desk as though it was just a hologram. Instinctively, Ino looked around for any sign of holographic emitters. Who are you? How did you get in here?" Ino managed to say as she found the strength to sidestep to the left. She was moving toward one of the 2 hidden panic buttons in the room. The Destican paused. "Don't insult my intelligence, primitive," he said. "I remember our last meeting very well. It was but a taste of my future." Ino had reached the trophy case on one side of the wall. Keeping one hand behind her desk, she pushed a wooden panel until it depressed into a slot, connecting a hidden circuit. "I've never met you before," Ino said, choosing her words carefully and speaking in a clear voice. "And you're an enemy." Ino was recovering from the initial shock. Her strength and courage were returning now, and the Destican intruder seemed to have noticed. "There's that streak of willpower I found so fascinating." He seemed to be speaking to someone else. Then he looked at one of the placards on the wall behind Ino. "Ino Esperanta. So that is your name." The intruder seemed to drink in the knowledge. "You should be honored. You have been chosen to serve me. So few of your kind have known the honor and privilege of calling me their master." Ino could hear rumbling in the hallway just outside of her office. The Destican did not react. Ino wondered if he was able to hear the noise. He started to advance on Ino again. She pressed herself to the wall and, in a moment of panic, reverted to one of her native languages. "Liastashitai! Liastashitai kunmi!" The Destican smirked. From the other side of the door, the voice of Elodie shouted, "Breach! Bang! And clear!" It all happened in about 3 seconds. First, the door of Ino's office was blown off its hinges. Ino covered her eyes and sank to the floor, stunned by the blast. Then, a flashbang grenade was tossed into the office. Ino heard a sharp cracking sound before she was suddenly deafened. Eyes jammed shut, Ino felt people moving around the office, and then someone grabbed her by the shoulders and dragged her into the hallway. Finally, Ino opened her eyes. 2 members of Elodie's squad had hold of her. Ashok Raval and Hermione Durand unpacked a nano medikit and started loading up a syringe with nanite serum. Hermione poked Ino with the syringe, injecting medical nanites into her bloodstream. It took about 5 minutes for both of Ino's eardrums to be repaired. "Did you get him?" Ino asked as her hearing was restored. "The Destican?" "What Destican?" Ashok said. "It was just you in there." "We're searching the ship, obviously," Hermione added in a reassuring tone. "But there's no sign of a Destican anywhere. I don't know what happened or what you saw, but you really were alone."
Creeping in my soul, it's getting out of control. I gotta find my escape, get out of this black hole. Cause justice in the world is hard to find. Time has come, gotta make up my mind. No matter how deep or remote I hide, all my thoughts seem caught up inside. Creeps from the deep's gonna be freaking up your mind. Creeps from the deep's gonna be feeding up your spine.